people say all sorts of things. I mean, was it, who's the quote by, is it Upton Sinclair? You can't get a man to understand something when his salary depends upon him not understanding it. And often you get people in the treatment system who are promoting treatment. You know, they need you to be thick enough to be dependent on them forever. People would go into prison. When I worked in prisons, we were detoxing people. I mean, when I first joined the prison service, I was in charge of the 7 London prisons. We did 8,500 detoxes a year. That was more than the NHS. I examined every drug action team plan from the Isle of Wight to Birmingham, and they didn't come close to the number of detoxes we were doing. When I looked at our detoxes, about nearly half were what I would call symptomatic relief. They weren't proper clinical detoxes, and the other half were proper clinical detoxes. And when you ask prisoners, what do you want? And they said, I'd rather have a shit detox now than a good one in 6 months' time, because I want to get off the drugs now. So during my time at the prison service, we outsourced, we moved all of our detox out of our control into the control of what were primary care trusts at the time. And they come in and they did better detoxes than us. Clinically, they were better. And then we had this thing called IDYTS come in, the Integrated Drug Treatment System, looking for equivalence of care between the prison service and the community. And we moved to more methadone maintenance rather than detox. And Wormwood Scrubs was one of the ones that did IDYTS, and they went from having a top-class detox. I mean, it was a bad detox when I got there. It was like an Eastern Bloc sanitarium, gaunt-looking people looking out of their cells, people swapping medication, doing all sorts of stuff. But we changed that, and we managed to make it a 55-bed unit. We didn't do any urine testing anymore. We did saliva testing. We had men and women staff, because we could do saliva testing and not urine testing. You know, we had fish. You know, we had comfortable sofas. We had night packs of food, because people were trying to build themselves up again. We had an infrared sauna, so that people could have a sauna without having to take off their clothes. And we had a relationship with the gym, so that people could do a phytech assessment. And by the end of their detox, they were built up. Their sleep pattern was back to normal. You know, they'd sleep at night and be up during the day, and they could go to the gym and do a 20-minute session unaided. And then they could move on into the general population. That changed when we went to the community system and to IDYTS. That became prison-wide methadone maintenance. And we had about 250 people on methadone constantly. And they were spread all around the prison, and the detox was no longer the kind of good practice model that it was. And so when you look at the community system, it doesn't take account of the situational differences. And so, yeah, recovery might kill, buses kill, planes kill, people die in car accidents, you know, all sorts of things kill. But recovery gives people agency and choice. It gives them the reins of their life back into their own hands. And what we started to do in the prison service, which I think was really sad, it was after I left, was not only were they doing fewer detoxes and more methadone maintenance, for those that were getting off drugs, they were re-inducting them before they sent them out into the community, because they said, you could die out there. You know, if you go out and use, having not been using, you could die. And so we're going to re-induct you onto methadone and get you into a treatment service. And so we were, you know, it's crazy thinking, because maybe we're coming at it from a a point of view of people have agency, they have autonomy, they can make choices. But from a clinician's point of view, they were just thinking about risk. And sometimes you get this with public health, is when you take a public health perspective, for all the good that they do for the whole community, sometimes the individual gets lost in the public health thinking. So we're going to give everyone over the age of 50 who's slightly overweight, we're going to give them beta blockers. We're going to do something that is going to help them. But rather than saying, actually, you could do with losing a few pounds, and here's how to do it, and we're going to give you free gym membership, or we're going to subsidize something, rather than just give you a drug. And I think there's a kind of way of thinking about recovery kills that is wrong thinking.
You said that they were inducted into methadone when they were in prison.
Yeah.
Was that compulsory?
No, but it was pushed.
It was pushed.
It was a clinical decision. It was if the clinician decided this person is at huge risk, they would have that conversation with them, and they would, not push. Doctors will get funny if you say they push people in that direction, but the kind of "trust me, I'm a doctor" conversation isn't one that people brush off lightly, even prisoners.
No.
So if they're being told it's okay, we're going to put you back on this stuff and get you out into the community and get you some help and some stability in the community because we don't want you to die, then that's a powerful conversation. But to me, I think it's a wrong conversation. It's a little bit like the cover story conversation. It's not about going out there and starting your recovery on methadone. You're in recovery. Let's put some protective factors in place. Rather, let's find you somewhere to live. Let's help you find a job. Not think about just your addiction and reinducting you onto methadone at the end of let's say a 12-month sentence where we've had ample opportunity to help you and we've ignored helping you, and now we're in crisis at the last minute, and so the crisis measure is reinducting you onto methadone and blaming recovery as the risk factor. The risk factor is you've been in prison for 12 months and we've done naff all to help you. All we've done is, we've helped you in the sense that we may have got you off the gear and you've been to the gym and you've got a bit fitter, but we're now worried that you're going to leave because you've got nowhere to live, you've got no job. You're going to get a £48 sort of bit of money when you leave. We're going to release you on a Friday at 4:00 with £48. And you're going to walk out of Brixton prison and you can go left into the town or right into the estate where you can score. In fact, the dealer will sit at the end of the road and watch people come out. All of those other things, the protective factors that people need, I think we're clearer about what they are now, and services are trying to do them in terms of housing. Housing first as an initiative, giving people a decent place to live, regardless of whether they choose to get better or whether they choose to follow the rules, because that having somewhere to live makes it more likely that they are going to make good choices. They're going to have a stable base to work and build from. Having a job, even if it's a humble beginning in a coffee shop or a building site. But to say recovery is a risk when you haven't done all that you can do in terms of putting protective factors in place to maintain that recovery, I think says more about the clinical situation than it does about recovery. And it's sad because the other thing is that person has had investment in them to get to that point, and they're now in recovery. And what we're doing is we're kind of discounting all that previous investment in their life